when we took it down off the post and redid the restoration, the landing gear, the struts and everything like that, times have changed. The industry was very, very generous in those days. This is in the 80s, right? We took all those bits and pieces and sent them down to Air Canada's overhaul shop, which was one of the few in the country qualified to do it. And they said to their personnel, if you want to do some voluntary overtime or whatever, you can work on the Lancaster stuff. Air Canada has over 10,000 man hours on our undercarriage alone. So extrapolate that. The rivets are all new, nuts and bolts are new, hydraulic fittings. Again, the World War II stuff and the modern stuff don't match. And little nuts and bolts and fittings and couplings. So if you take a very close look, you'll notice, for any of you who are technically oriented, what we call AN fittings, which are the modern aviation standard fittings. You can tell them because they're light blue in color. We had to take the British end off every pipe and wire and everything like that and splice onto it the new parts because there were no spares available for the old ones. So the structure is original, but many of the little bits and pieces are changed. She has thoroughly modern airline radios, and instead of a grizzled old gray-haired gentleman sitting back there with maps and charts, we have a little GPS.
Finally.
What campaign did she fly in?
Pardon?
Which campaign or what year?
She didn't.
Oh, she didn't?
She came out of the factory in June of '45, just too late to see the war. Went into storage in '45. Went into storage in '45, came out in '52. She spent her entire working life as an air sea rescue aircraft. The whole series of life rafts chained together, quite literally. And they dropped these things, and it would stretch out. Again, trivia. It would stretch out over 300 or 400 yards. It'd be 5 or 6 big rafts, all tied together, right? So what they do is if the people were there and the wind was blowing this way, they'd fly crosswind and drop this Lindholm gear, and this whole chain of rafts would drift down across the people. So
It's almost like the role of the Shackleton, kind of similar.
see the undercarriage?
Yep.
Those struts, the shock struts, the retraction mechanism, the wheels, brakes, and tires are off the Shackleton.
Interesting.
The airplane started out as a thing called a Manchester, which was only twin engine. It was a miserable failure and it killed more Brits than it did Germans. So I said, to hell with that, took it back to the factory, and as an experiment, they took it in and took the 2 Rolls-Royce Vultures off, put 4 Merlins on. Bingo, instant success, you have a Lancaster. The Lancaster they then took the fuselage out and put a square fuselage in it called an Avro York, which was a transport version. They then stretched the Lancaster and called it a Lincoln. And after the war, they took the Lincoln fuselage out, put a different fuselage in, they called it Shackleton. Other than that, all of that long chain of airplanes, all the same.